Cyclone InCYders alongside Andreas Haffar and Hawn Wong. I'm Fiddelke. Iowa State football team traveled to Iowa City this past weekend, and Iowa State gained an extra passenger on the way back to Ames as they brought home the Cy-Hawk Trophy on the foot of Colton Netton. So first, guys, we're going to break down each quarter. With the first quarter, Iowa started with the ball with a 3-and-out. Iowa State got the ball on a punt, and they went 3-and-out. So Iowa takes the ball, marches it down the field, and they converted on 2 third downs and 2 fourth downs. And one of those fourth downs being the 1-yard touchdown run by Weissman. So real quick, Andreas, your thoughts on Iowa going for it on that first fourth down when they were clearly in field goal range?
You know, it just adds to speculation. In my opinion, I just don't think Iowa have the kickers for it. They had Myers. Stud. But you know, in my opinion, if it comes down to Netton or Marshall, I gotta go Netton all day.
So Hawn, what's your opinion? Do you agree with Kurt Ferentz making the call to go for it on 4th and 1 instead of kicking the for sure 3 points? It ends up working out for them in the end, but your thoughts on them going for it on 4th down?
Yeah, I totally agree with Andreas over there. If you watch Iowa's game against Ball State last week, you could really see that they didn't have the kicking and the special teams for that type of play. They missed 4 of their field goals out of the 5 that they kicked. So definitely Ferentz deciding to make the call to go 4th and 1 and all those the other 4-down conversions, good call on his part.
I'd have to agree with both of you. It speaks was not confident in his. Also, even if they did have a good kicker, it speaks confidence for his guys up front to get a push for Weissman, which in the previous Cy-Hawk series they've been able to run the ball down our throat. So personally, having the kicker now, I thought it was too early to go for it on 4th down when you're in field goal range, but it ended up, like I said, working to their favor, getting 7 points instead of 3. So Iowa is up 7-0 after 1 quarter. We go to the with a field goal after that touchdown. And was it important, Hawn, for Iowa State to respond the very next drive with points, whether it was 3 points or 7?
Yes, I feel that was very important for Iowa State. You'll hear me say this all year, and you'll see it all year with Iowa State. They're a big momentum team. They strive on momentum and how the team does play by play. So failing to convert, one of their drives in either a field goal or touchdown would really not only just put them behind in the score, but also just leave them behind in terms of morale for the team and making just a comeback that much harder for them.
Andreas, do you agree? It's Iowa State feeds off the the momentum of scoring, and do you agree with Hawn that it was pretty important for Iowa State to come away with either 7 or 3, and in the end they came away with 3?
Definitely. Right after, especially right after that. To build momentum. They are a momentum team, and I would definitely agree with that. And it's important in the sense that, okay, I know it's early, but you want to stay in the game. Just to say, hey, we're still in it, but you do want to stay in the game and not lose sight of it. So yeah, I definitely agree with Hawn in that respect.
I think it was pretty huge as well. Iowa with the home crowd, Iowa State's first true road game, their first road game of the season, and to go down 7-0, the Iowa, away with points, I think you saw take some momentum away from Iowa, and it kind of showed throughout the second quarter with Iowa not being able to convert on their drives. So Iowa gets on the board with a 5-yard run from Rudock just with under 4 minutes to go in the half, and then Iowa State marches it down the field, ready to answer, and then Devondrick Neely on the 1-yard line fumbles. So instead of it being 10-14 at half, and they're going to receive the ball after halftime, it's 3-14 at half. Can you talk about Iowa State's confidence at halftime? What do you think Iowa State was feeling, in that locker room, Andreas?
Oh, I mean, that was rough to watch. That entire drive, we saw 2 incomplete passes, and then the 1 or 2 1-yard line. It's rough, but I think it's important to really. It was just And I think maybe told them is that, hey, we're still in this game. We have a whole half to go. And I think it was unlucky. It just showed we were that close. We can do it again and, get in halftime. And I think the Hawkeyes needed to get into the locker room a little sooner rather than later, rather than the Cyclones there. So.
And you touching on that, Paul Rhodes, you telling them to keep their head up there in the game. He said in his post-game press conference that they could have just had doubt after that fumble like they did against K-State. He said he felt that doubt at halftime, giving up that late half touchdown to K-State. He felt that doubt against K-State, and he said in the locker room, he walked in and he didn't see them hanging their heads at all, and he thought they were ready to get back, ready to get back out there. So what do you think their confidence was at half, knowing, like, do you agree with Coach Rhodes that it was a good thing for them to see hang their heads rather than K-State? It shows that they're growing.
Cyclones, throughout the game, they definitely had the confidence, especially going into halftime, even though they didn't execute on that 1 yard line. They was definitely still in this game, being down only 11 points at half, despite the whole game. People were speculating Iowa was just gonna run away with this. You could just see the confidence was there. Just their execution was a little shaky, and I know Paul Rhodes would definitely just love to get in that locker room and instill to his guys that you have the confidence, just execute this game plan.
It's totally true. So being down 3-14 at half, it could have been a lot worse. And so, Andreas, we'll start with you. What were your first half takeaways with Iowa State being down 3-14?
Towards the end of it, initially I go, oh no, here we go. But I think they, stuck together. They saw some of the cracks in maybe the Iowa defense, and they really banded together. And like we were saying, the momentum is key. And then to get into halftime and say, let's do this, I think they can. That's exactly what happened. They kind of continued that from the end of the first half. And so, I definitely think a lot of positive things to come.
Hawn, what are your thoughts of the first half? Some positive takeaways for Iowa State that they could use for the second half?
That first half was fully as I expected it to be. Not very high scoring, not very many explosive plays. But, that's kind of the game that Iowa and both Iowa State kind of wanted. They wanted to keep both teams at bay, just kind of feel them out. And you can see that throughout the second half that, a little more up-tempo. What both teams wanted.
Stats straight across the board, they're fairly similar in the rushing yards and the passing yards. And the key thing that it can't go unnoticed was that fumble. Yes, you got to shake it off, but I was able to control the ball in the first half, getting 4 to 6 yards a pop on run plays, and that just melts the clock and eats away at it. So, and I thought, on third downs, Iowa was able to convert on those third downs, extend the drives, extend that time of possession. The time of possession was 20-10 Iowa at half, which is huge, but yet Iowa State was still able to be in the game 3-14. So real quickly, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, but after the break, we're going to talk about the second half and how Iowa State was able to pull away with a 20.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Buzzed, busted, and broke, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Live with a human for a while, and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she's actually not a morning person. I know she does straight. Makes her howl like crazy. I even know how the floor stays so clean. She's quick. But the one thing I will never for the life of me know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
Welcome back to Cycling InCYders. I'm still Alan Fiddelke, Andreas Haffar, and Hawn Wong. Before the break, we touched on down 3 to 14 at half. So in the third quarter, Iowa State starts with the ball to start the second half, but then they punt the ball. And then Iowa State was able to force a turnover deep inside of Iowa territory with a interception by TJ Mutcherson. And then Iowa State was able to capitalize with that turnover with a short field position with a touchdown on 4th and 1 with a pretty sensational catch by E.J. Bibbs. So do you think, Andreas, we'll start with you, that was almost the turning point for Iowa State for this victory?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was a big turning point. The confidence was there. Maybe even, they're in the locker room, they're talking, and they have one of these big moments that can come out and go, yeah, we can do this. That just confirms that we can do this. And, Mutcherson was perfectly placed, But, let's talk about E.J. Bibbs. That catch, what a graceful throw from Richard. I really enjoyed it, and I think, hey, we're on whatever line it was. I think it was 1 or
1 yard line.
Yeah, 1 yard line, and I like that. I think that was good. Hey, we can do it. Doesn't have to be pretty.
Yeah.
The catch was very pretty, but
yes.
it doesn't have to be entirely elaborate there.
Yeah.
So.
Sam Richardson touched on after the game that, quote, he crapped his pants when he released it because it was underthrown. He said E.J. Bibbs made a sensational catch and reaction to the ball. He's got great. Turning point for Iowa State to lead them to this victory?
Definitely, that interception. Obviously, we knew it was Iowa State's first interception of the season, but
first turnover to
first
create
turnover
overall.
created by that defense. Definitely, I'm sure their defense knew it was the first one they've created. So giving their defense, the momentum, leading into some great offense. You know what they say: a good offense created by some good defense.
Yes.
Definitely to give us some decent field position to march down that field, and to touch on that, Richardson to Bibbs catch. That's what our all-conference tight end needs to do. Even if he's not targeted as much as we want him to, doesn't catch many balls, to make that kind of play in that type of situation in the environment. That's why he is one of our stars.
Absolutely.
And especially you touched on him, might not get many catches. A lot of spotlight is put on him now with Quentin Bundra's out. Quentin Bundra's the year against North Dakota State. But for me, you'd be stupid to not say that was the turning point for Iowa State. Huge momentum swing. In the first half, Iowa controlled the ball and was able to run it at Iowa State and just milk the clock. So you had to think Iowa was going to come out and do it again, make it 21-3, excuse me, possibly 17-3, and almost put the nail in the coffin for Iowa State. Because once they're down big, they kind of lose all hope. And the ball got away with the throw, but he was in position to make that interception as a safety. He was in the right position at the right time. He was doing his job. So it gave the team a short field position, a short field, and they capitalized with, as we all saw, that E.J. Bibbs sensational catch, and it swung momentum in the favor of Iowa State.
Also, another thing, that was Iowa defense first touchdown they gave up in the red zone. So to give Iowa State, that type of recognition, even if they didn't know it or not, that's just something to recognize for Iowa State.
That's huge, and Iowa State is not used to being able to capitalize in the red zone. They settle for field goals because once you get in the red zone, you want to run the ball. It's a short field. Iowa State's known for those big explosive plays. With Jarvis West, whether it's punt return or long touchdown receptions. But when you get in the red zone, is kind of lax, just to milk the clock. The only score in the third quarter is a touchdown. So we fast forward to the fourth quarter, 11:30 left in the game. Iowa State's on their own 8-yard line, not known for being able to march down the field, and yet they go 92 yards in 4 minutes for a touchdown to take a 17-14 lead. So let's first touch on halfway through that drive, 2nd and 8. Incomplete pass to Jarvis West, but a flag thrown on Jordan Lomax, secondary for Iowa, for targeting. They reviewed it. They said he was targeting. He was ejected. You guys saw it. Do you agree, Andreas? We'll start with you.
Sure.
That was the correct call.
I think it was the correct call. Excuse me. Lomax didn't seem to go for the ball. There was another a man marking him, but it didn't seem. These days touched upon in every sport. So I think the official was put in a position where, hey, we got to keep it safe, and it was the right call to eject him. I think it was.
And that was a new rule enforced this year, as they asked, in a press conference with Paul Rhodes, they asked about any new rules, and this was one. And honestly, I didn't think it was going to come up as much. I don't see it as much. You see it in the first game with Kamori Cotton-Moya getting ejected against North Dakota State. But Hawn, do you agree with this call to eject Jordan Lomax? I almost said Womax, but no, Jordan Lomax with targeting. Do you agree with that call?
Trying to be as unobjective as I can. It was a very close call.
Yes, for sure.
Although he wasn't leading with his head, if he was, put his head down and hit the other receiver with his head, obviously that's a flag right there on its own. But he hit him with a shoulder pad. West's helmet.
Yep.
So it's kind of perspective of the referees, where they saw it, but called or not, a flag nonetheless, and it got Iowa State in some good position.
Yeah, West did not return to the game. He left with concussion-like symptoms. He's questionable from here on out. Hopefully in these next couple weeks he can get better for the Baylor game. But in my opinion, I don't think it was the right call. He whipped to the ground, so his head lowered, and they consider targeting the head at a stand-up straight position. Not squatting or anything. You saw that, like I said, with Kamori Cotton-Moya against North Dakota State. The receiver squatted, and Paul Rhodes touched on it after the North Dakota State game. He squats, that takes away where you're supposed to hit, so where are they supposed to hit them? I think that was kind of the same way with Jarvis. He was being thrown, and as he's being thrown, the head was being thrown towards where he was lunging, essentially, or getting ready to make the tackle. So I just think it's a difficult call to make. I think the refs are always going to favor the ejection to show that, like you said, Andreas, that's a serious injury. It could lead to a concussion. But I thought it was a huge call because Iowa lost their third leading tackler of the game. He fumbled. If the Targeting was not called, Hawn. Do you think Iowa State still would have scored? You can say, maybe, yes. What's your opinion based off of the game Iowa State and Iowa had been playing?
Yeah, I definitely pin this one on yes, without a doubt to me, because we held Iowa scoreless in that third quarter, and Iowa State was able to score that touchdown that we had. So we came out of the half not on fire, but definitely better than Iowa came out of the half, and to have that kind of we were already marching down the field with some good plays. We had the game plan on our side. So
it's tough to say. I honestly don't think they would have scored, but it would have forced a 3rd and 8, and Iowa State struggles converting with, not being able to pass situation for Sam Richardson. And this was the first time they had put together a long drive like that for a touchdown. They usually stall and they punt the ball. And Rhodes said after the game he credited the O-line for giving Richardson time to throw throughout the second half, and that's why they were able to put together. They had 2 long drives they put together at in the second half. So it's tough to say. If you would have told me that Iowa State was going to put together another long drive later, I might have said yes. But at that point of time, I personally don't think Iowa State would have scored. But Iowa's ensuing drive after Iowa State scored that touchdown, they drive down the field, they settle for a field goal, he makes it, and ties it up at 17 with 4 minutes left. Guys, deja vu with Iowa State with the ball late in the game. And they, granted they only had a minute, no timeouts, but before K-State scored that touchdown, they had the ball to be able to run out the clock. This time they're from behind, and they convert with a field goal on the second try because Kurt Ferentz, did the ice the kicker timeout, and he missed it. And first off, what is your guys' view? Hawn, we'll start with you on the ice the kicker. For it, are you against?
As a coach's call, looking at Coach Ferentz's perspective, it was inevitable. He was going to do it. I knew as Cole Netton was kicking that first try, there was a timeout called. I heard a whistle. But statistically, it really doesn't work. If you look it up, icing the kicker, it's not proven to give the kicker any less of a chance. In my opinion, you're just giving the kicker a chance to line up his kick. It's almost like a dress rehearsal of sorts, and he eventually just made the field goal. So.
Yeah, Andreas, are you in the same in the same boat as Hawn that it's pointless? It gives them a practice kick essentially, so they get 2 tries. What's your take on the ice the kicker timeout?
I mean, essentially, in that position, I think as a kicker you would expect that, and as a coach you would expect that too. Any coach worth mentioning would have probably. We saw it doesn't always work. A lot of times it doesn't work, and like you said, it is like a dress rehearsal. But credit to Cole, kept his head. He was phenomenal all game.
Yep.
And he deservedly helped the Cyclones seal the win. So yeah, definitely. I think it, as you saw, didn't work. So, but walk away with the victory. So.
You touched on it. It's so common nowadays. So I think the fact that it's so common, I would. How common it is, kickers might get that mindset that, I'm about to go to try to win this game for my team, and I'm just gonna. I'm going to get 2 tries at this because it's so common. Right. So if, he didn't have that mindset, but it's so common nowadays, they might just not call it and while they're expecting it, and they expect a first try, 2 tries at it, and he might miss the first one. But it's with the ice the kicker timeout, it's Russian roulette almost. And luckily for us Iowa State fans, Kurt Ferentz and the Hawkeyes got the bullet in that Russian roulette. But I was always taught, I thought that first field goal was good. I was always told if it goes inside to out, it's good. Inside to out from the uprights, and it goes over, it's good. Outside to in, it's no good. But if that's the case, they missed the call against Oklahoma State and Iowa State a couple years back. We're not going to mention that. We're going to take that we can. Yeah. So that drive to set up that game-winning field goal, it was a lengthy drive. So that marks the second time Iowa State was able to put together a long drive. Is this a trend we can look forward to in the future, that Iowa State can now finally put together long drives and come away with points instead of stalling, or is this just a fluke? Andreas?
You know, I think Iowa State has been working to their strengths before, and I think if we can start doing some of these long drives, that'll add another dimension to our game, and we can finally maybe step it up and have a way better season than our painful previous season. But it, you know, and not such a great start to our one now. But with that, I think we saw a little bit of a different Iowa State, and I think that's positive for the program, and I think we can look forward to more of them, hopefully.
Yep. Iowa State credit those long drives to offensive linemen, Sam being able to stay in the pocket, progress through his reads, and let the routes, you know, take time to develop. So, key takeaways, guys, from this game for Iowa State heading, you know, they have a bye week. They have time to prepare for a very, very good Baylor, you know, team, offense and defense. What are some, you know, give me a couple of key takeaways, Andreas.
You know, victory can build from this. Season starts now. Start now. Forget the first two games. It is a long season.
Yep.
But hopefully Coach Rhodes and the team, and we've talked about it, the momentum can keep this momentum. Say, hey, you know, Baylor's the next you know, roadblock. So let's see what we can do there. They beat, you know, Iowa in a different division. They're in a different conference. Excuse me. But they can take that away. They did really well. Keep your heads up like they did, and I think, you know, it'd be a tough contest against Baylor, but we can see what happens.
Hawn, couple takeaways real quick.
Yeah, the takeaway I saw from this Iowa State game was our week-to-week improvement. We saw in that North Dakota State game, not a good game. You know, nothing that we could really take away as, you know, good, positive. But to that K-State game that we played, we stuck with number 20 ranked team in the nation until you know, very last few minutes. We really stuck with them. Although we lost, we played a good game, and improvement here. You know, we just kept. If Iowa State can get Paul Rhodes to actually coach and execute a game plan instead of just being the emotional, passionate coach, although that is good.
It's good.
If he can learn to coach and execute, yes.
Deliver.
Yeah, the players are just in good hands to finish or even take over a game.
Yep. One big key takeaway is they held Iowa to 43 yards through the air, which is big heading into Baylor in 2 weeks, who is known for scoring. Another thing, Sam is getting more comfortable in the offensive system with Coach Mangino. He talked about that. Said that his play against North Dakota State was his best game, as you know, in an Iowa State uniform. And then the K-State, he said those are the best 2 games he played as an Iowa State. And he predicted that Sam was going to have his best game of his career against Iowa, and he did. So, and another thing, I think Iowa State needs to come up with more third down stops. Opponents are converting these first 3 games, converting nearly 50%, which is keeping Iowa State on the field longer and not having many offensive plays. And Iowa State's only converted 14 of their 37. So, and they also, you know, need to create more turnovers. You saw how big of a momentum swing that was. Hopefully, they can create some turnovers and get, you know, some third down stops, because their next opponent, number 7th ranked Baylor Bears, they're idle this week as well. They're averaging almost a point a minute at 59.3 points per game, which is top in the nation, and they also are 3rd in the nation. That is still pretty dang impressive. So that's
some video game numbers.
Those are some games.
Bryce Petty knows how to throw the ball.
Bryce Petty well, he's a pretty good player. So, but that's all we have for this week's Cycle and InCYders. Iowa State is on a bye week this week, so be sure to join us on Tuesday as we preview Iowa State versus the high-octane offense Baylor Bears and discuss if Iowa State can actually pull off an upset at home, against the Baylor Bears. So have a great night.